The year was 2187 when the asteroid came. It was bigger than anything humanity had ever faced. Scientists called it the World Ender. Telescopes tracked its path for months, and every calculation showed the same result. Earth would die. 7 billion people watched the sky and waited for the end. Then the came. Nobody knew who they were. Nobody had ever seen them before. Their ships appeared near Jupiter, strange vessels that looked like floating crystals. They did not ask permission. They did not make demands. They simply moved toward the asteroid and did something that human science could not explain. The massive rock changed direction. It flew past Earth and disappeared into the darkness of space. They sent one message before they left. It said, "We saw your world in danger. We could help, so we did. Perhaps one day you will help others, or perhaps not. We do not keep count of such things." Then they were gone. Humanity never forgot. They built monuments to They taught children about the day the crystal ship saved Earth. And deep in the hearts of every human, a simple truth lived on. They owed a debt. Someday they would pay it. 300 years passed. Brooke stood at the window of the United Earth Embassy on Titan. She was 53 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many diplomatic crises. Behind her, the orange clouds of Saturn filled the sky. She held a cup of coffee in her hands but had forgotten to drink it. Her assistant, a young man named Pete, rushed into the room. His face was pale. "Ambassador, we have a visitor." He came through the outer gate without any warning. Our sensors did not even see his ship until it was already landing. Set down her coffee. Her heart began to beat faster. In 300 years they had never returned. They had never asked for anything. They had simply vanished into the galaxy, a mystery that humanity could not solve. "Bring him to the main hall," she said. "And Pete, tell no one about this until I say so." They stood in the center of the hall when arrived. His name was, and he was unlike anything she had expected. His body was made of something that looked like living crystal. Light moved inside him, soft colors that shifted and changed. But the light was dim. Could see that something was wrong. "Ambassador Brooks," said. His voice sounded like wind passing through glass. "I come to your people with a heavy heart. My kind does not ask for help. We have lived for millions of years without needing others, but now we face something we cannot survive alone." Walked closer to him. She kept her voice calm and steady. "Tell me what has happened." "The Empire has declared war on my people. They want our technology. They want the knowledge we have gathered across thousands of generations. We refuse to give it to them, and now they send their fleet to take it by force." "How many ships?" asked. 12,000 warships. They will arrive at our in 18 cycles. That is approximately 6 of your weeks. Felt the weight of those numbers. 12,000 warships was more than any single species could fight. It was an army meant to destroy, not to conquer. "What about your own defenses?" she asked. Slight flickered. It was a sign of deep sadness. "We have none. My people have never fought a war. We have never needed weapons. For millions of years we lived in peace. We believed that wisdom and kindness would protect us. We were wrong." Was silent for a long moment. She thought about the asteroid. She thought about the children on Earth who grew up hearing stories of crystal ships in the sky. She thought about the words her grandmother had told her when she was young. "When someone saves your life, you owe them everything. And when they need you, you give everything." "Wait here," she said too. "I need to make a call." She walked to her private office and opened a secure channel. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to Admiral Jake. He was 60 years old, with a thick gray beard and eyes that had seen 100 battles. He commanded the entire United Earth Fleet from his flagship, the carrier Endurance. "Ambassador Brooks," he said, "this is unexpected." "Admiral, I need you to listen carefully. Do you remember the stories about the ones who saved Earth 300 years ago?" "Everyone remembers," Jake said. "One of them is standing in my embassy right now. His people are about to be destroyed by the Empire. 12,000 warships. 6 weeks until the attack. Jake was quiet. His face did not change, but could see something shift in his eyes. It was not fear. It was something else. Something like purpose. "How many ships do we have?" he asked. "Around 3,000 that can make the journey." "That is not enough." "I know." Jake leaned back in his chair. He looked at something off-screen, perhaps a picture of his family, perhaps a map of the stars. When he spoke again, his voice was firm. 300 years ago, they saved every person on Earth. Every child that was born after that day, every dream that was dreamed, every song that was sung. All of it exists because they chose to help us when they did not have to. We owe them more than we can ever repay. "The odds are impossible," said. "Then we will do the impossible." Jake straightened in his seat. "Begin the call to arms. Contact every ship, every colony, every soldier who can hold a weapon. Tell them Earth is going to war. Tell them we are going to pay a debt that is 300 years old." Nodded. She felt something warm spread through her chest. It was pride. It was hope. It was the feeling of being part of something greater than herself. "What should I tell them?" she asked. Jake smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. "Tell him that humanity remembers. Tell him that we are coming. And tell him to get ready, because when humans pay their debts, they pay them in full." Ended the call and walked back to the main hall. Stood exactly where she had left him. His light was still dim, still filled with fear and sadness. She stood before him and spoke the words that would change the galaxy forever. "The humans are coming, all of us. Every ship we have, every soldier who can fight. We are going to save your world." Light flickered. "Why? We asked for nothing when we saved you. We expected nothing." Reached out and placed her hand near his crystalline form. She could feel warmth coming from him, like standing near a gentle fire. "That is exactly why we are coming," she said. "You helped us because it was right. Now we will help you for the same reason. That is what it means to be human." For the first time in many cycles, light grew brighter. Part 2. The Impossible Odds. Admiral Jake stood on the bridge of the Endurance and stared at the tactical display. The holographic map showed the positions of every ship in the human fleet. Blue dots scattered across the screen, each one representing thousands of lives. 3,047 ships. That was everything humanity could gather in time. They had 12,000. Commander Danny Cole walked up beside him. Danny was 38 years old, with short brown hair and a scar across his left cheek from a battle he never talked about. He had served under Jake for 15 years. In all that time, he had never seen his admiral look so troubled. "Sir, the numbers do not work. Even if every ship performs perfectly, even if we lose nothing in the journey, we cannot win this fight. They will destroy us." Jake did not look away from the display. "I know." "Then why are we going?" Jake turned to face his second in command. His eyes were calm but filled with something that Danny could not quite name. It was not madness. It was not desperation. It was something deeper. "Because 300 years ago, strange ships appeared in our sky and saved our entire world. They did not ask if they could win. They did not calculate the odds. They simply saw a planet in danger and decided to help. How can we do anything less?" Danny was silent. He looked at the map again. He thought about his wife and daughter back on Earth. He thought about the stories his father had told him as a child, stories about crystal ships and a race of beings who gave humanity a second chance at life. "What do we tell the crew?" he asked. "The truth. We tell them the truth and let them decide for themselves." The message went out across every ship in the fleet. Jake spoke to millions of soldiers, engineers, pilots, and volunteers. His words were simple and clear. 300 years ago, they saved Earth. They asked for nothing. They expected nothing. Now they face extinction at the hands of the Empire. We have 3,000 ships. The enemy has 12,000. The odds say we cannot win. But I did not join this fleet to calculate odds. I joined to do what is right. If you believe the same, then come with me. If you cannot, I understand. No one will think less of you." Not a single ship turned back. Across human space, something remarkable began to happen. News of the mission spread faster than any official announcement could travel. People heard that humanity was going to repay and they responded in ways that no one expected. On Mars, retired soldiers came out of their quiet lives and reported to recruitment centers. Some of them were 70 years old. They said they had been waiting their whole lives for a chance like this. On Luna, engineers worked triple shifts to convert civilian ships into combat vessels. Cargo haulers became missile platforms. Passenger liners became medical frigates. Factory workers welded armor plating onto hulls with their own hands. On Earth, volunteers flooded every spaceport. They were teachers, farmers, shopkeepers, and students. Most of them had never held a weapon. All of them wanted to help. A young woman named stood in line at the Houston Recruitment Center. She was 29 years old, with dark hair tied back in a practical knot. She held an engineering degree in one hand and a bag of tools in the other. "I can fix anything that flies," she told the officer at the desk. "Engines, shields, weapon systems. Put me on a ship and I will keep it running until the fight is over." She was assigned to the Endurance that same day. In the science labs deep inside the carrier, Dr. Sophie Lane studied data on her tablet with bloodshot eyes. She was 45 years old and had spent her entire career trying to understand alien technology. Now she held information about dimensional tech, and she saw something that made her heart race. She ran to the bridge and found Admiral reviewing fleet formations. "Admiral, I think I found something. They use dimensional manipulation to bend space. Their technology can create pockets where normal physics do not apply. If we can adapt this to our shield systems, we might be able to make our ships phase out of normal space for short periods." Jake looked at her with interest. What would that mean in a battle? "It would mean enemy weapons pass right through us. For a few seconds, we would be untouchable." "How long would we need to develop this?" Sophie hesitated. The honest answer was months, maybe years, but they did not have months or years. They had weeks. "I can do it in 3 weeks, maybe 2 if I do not sleep." Jake put his hand on her shoulder. "Then you will not sleep, Doctor. None of us will. Whatever you need, you will have it. People, equipment, resources, everything." Sophie nodded and hurried back to her lab. She would not leave it again for 16 days. Meanwhile, the fleet prepared to depart. Ships gathered at the staging point near Neptune, a massive armada that stretched across thousands of kilometers of space. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Danny Cole stood at the observation window and watched the ships arrive. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, frigates, old ships and new ships, military vessels and converted civilian craft, all of them coming together for a mission that most people thought was impossible. Joined him at the window. She had been working on the shield generators for 18 hours straight. Her hands were covered in grease, and her eyes were heavy with exhaustion. "Do you think we can win?" she asked. Danny was quiet for a moment, then he spoke. "I think winning is not the point. They did not ask if they could win when they saved Earth. They just did what was right. Maybe that is what matters. Maybe the doing is more important than the winning." Looked out at the fleet. Thousands of ships, millions of people, all of them willing to fly into certain death for a race they had never met. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about the crystal ships," she said. "She would say that real heroes do not count the cost. They just do what needs to be done." "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman." She died last year, but I think she would be proud of this. I think she would be proud of all of us." The departure order came at midnight. Admiral's voice echoed through every ship in the fleet. "All hands, this is Admiral. In a few minutes, We will begin the longest journey any human fleet has ever taken. We are going to cross hostile space, face an enemy that outnumbers us 4-1, and defend a world that most of us have never seen. Some of us will not come back. I will not lie to you about that, but I believe that what we are doing matters. I believe that 300 years of gratitude is worth fighting for. I believe that, when the galaxy looks back at this moment, they will remember that humanity paid its debts. He paused. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Good luck to all of you, and thank you. Thank you for being the kind of people who show up when the odds are impossible. The engines fired. 3,000 ships moved as one. The repayment fleet began its journey into the darkness of space, toward a battle that everyone said they could not win. But they went anyway. Because that is what humans do. Part 3, The Long March. The journey to space would take 4 weeks. The fleet traveled through regions of the galaxy that no human ship had ever crossed. Star systems with no names. Nebulae that glowed with strange colors. Empty spaces so vast that the mind could not understand them. Admiral Jake spent most of his time on the bridge, watching the stars pass by. He slept in short bursts, never more than a few hours at a time. His officers worried about him, but they said nothing. They understood that a leader must carry burdens that others cannot see. On the 5th day of the journey, something unexpected happened. A group of ships appeared on the sensors. They were not human, and they were not. Commander Danny Cole identified them immediately. Vessels, Admiral, 12 cargo ships and 4 escort cruisers. They were traders. They traveled across the galaxy buying and selling goods. They had no military, no empire, and no interest in wars. Jake had never heard of them helping anyone for free. The captain appeared on the communication screen. He was a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms. His name was Human. Admiral said, "We have heard about your mission. We do not understand it. You go to die for a species that cannot pay you. This makes no sense to our people." Jake nodded. "I understand. We do not ask for your help." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You misunderstand. We do not understand it, but we have decided to respect it. These cargo ships carry medical supplies, food, and repair materials. We offer them to your fleet. No payment required." Jake was surprised. "Why would you do this?" His 4 arms moved in a gesture that seemed to indicate uncertainty. "Perhaps because we have never seen anything like this. Perhaps because we want to know what will happen. Perhaps because even traders can recognize something valuable when they see it. Your people remember a debt for 300 years. That kind of loyalty has worth beyond any currency." The ships fell into formation with the human fleet. Their supplies would save thousands of lives in the days to come. But they were not the only ones watching. On the 12th day, a fleet of 50 warships appeared. They were vessels, and they were built for war. They were a warrior species. 20 years ago, they had fought a bloody conflict against humanity. The scars of that war still marked both peoples. Jake expected a fight. Instead, the commander sent a message. His name was. He was old with deep lines on his face and one eye missing from an ancient battle. He spoke slowly, choosing his words with care. "Human Admiral, I fought your people in the border wars. I killed many of your soldiers. Many of mine died by human hands. I thought I would hate your species until I returned to the ancestors." Jake listened in silence. "But now I watch your fleet fly to certain death for a debt that most species would have forgotten. I watch your people sacrifice everything for beings who cannot give them anything in return." Paused. "I was wrong about humans. Your species has honor that they have not seen in 1,000 years. My ships will join your fleet. We will fight beside you." 50 cruisers joined the armada. Their crews were veterans of 100 battles. They would prove their worth in the fighting to come. Word of the mission spread across the galaxy. More ships came. Some brought supplies. Some brought weapons. Some simply came to witness what might be the most remarkable act of loyalty the universe had ever seen. By the time the fleet reached the edge of space, it had grown from 3,000 ships to more than 5,000. Deep inside the Endurance, Dr. Sophie Lane had not slept in 16 days. Her lab was filled with equipment, data screens, and empty coffee cups. Her team worked around the clock, testing calculations that no one had ever attempted. Lieutenant served as her chief engineer. Hands were burned from welding. Her eyes were red from staring at screens, but she never complained. She simply worked harder. "The power requirements are too high," Sophie said, staring at her tablet. "Every time we activate the dimensional shift, we drain the entire shield grid. The ships would be defenseless after a single use." Looked at the numbers. She thought about the problem from every angle. Then she had an idea. What if we do not try to power it ourselves? What if we use the enemy's weapons against them? Sophie looked up. "Explain." "When they fire their plasma cannons, they release enormous amounts of energy. What if our shields could capture that energy and use it to power the dimensional shift? The more they shoot at us, the longer we can stay phased out of normal space." Sophie stared at her. Then she grabbed a stylus and began writing equations on the nearest screen. That could work. That could actually work. They worked for 3 more days. They rebuilt the shield emitters. They rewrote the power distribution systems. They tested their creation on a small shuttle, and when the shuttle phased out of reality for 8 seconds, they both collapsed from exhaustion and relief. The prototype was ready. Jake visited the lab to see the demonstration himself. Sophie activated the system and the shuttle vanished. Not invisible, not cloaked, simply gone from normal space. A laser beam passed through the area where it had been and hit nothing but empty air. When the shuttle reappeared, Jake allowed himself a small smile. "How long can we maintain the phase?" "With enemy fire powering the system, theoretically indefinitely. The more they shoot, the longer we last." Jake shook his head slowly. "They are going to hate this." Sophie managed a tired laugh. "That is the general idea, Admiral." The technology was distributed to every ship in the fleet. Engineers worked around the clock to install the new shield modifications. Some ships could only manage partial installations. Others had full capabilities, but every vessel gained some advantage from Sophie's invention. The fleet entered space on the 26th day. Traveled with them on the Endurance. He spent most of his time in the observation lounge, watching the stars that led to his home. His light had grown a little brighter since the journey began. Hope had returned to him, though he still feared what lay ahead. Brooks found him there on the final night before they reached Prime. She sat beside him in silence for a long moment. "I never thought I would see this," said. 5,000 ships from a dozen species, all coming to help my people. We asked for nothing and you bring everything." Looked out at the fleet. Lights blinked across thousands of vessels. Each light represented lives willing to end for the sake of strangers. 300 years ago, you saved us without asking anything in return. You changed our history. You gave us a future. Every person in this fleet grew up knowing that story. They grew up knowing that kindness can come from the darkness when you least expect it. She paused. Now it is our turn to be that kindness. His form flickered with emotion. What if you lose? What if all these lives are spent for nothing? Turned to face him. Her expression was gentle but firm. Then we will have died doing something worth dying for. And the galaxy will remember that when the needed help, humanity came. Win or lose, that story will live forever. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at dawn. Ahead of them, Prime hung in the darkness like a jewel made of crystal and light. It was the most beautiful world any of them had ever seen. And between that world and the fleet, 12,000 warships waited for battle. Jake looked at the enemy formation. He looked at his own ships. He thought about the impossible odds and the countless lives that depended on what happened next. Then he opened a channel to the entire fleet. All hands battle stations. The time has come to pay our debt. Part 4. The Battle of Crystal Haven. The fleet stretched across the darkness like a wall of metal and fire. 12,000 warships, each one bristling with weapons capable of destroying cities. At the center of the formation sat the flagship, a massive vessel called the Iron Dominion. Warlord commanded from its bridge. Was old for with scars that told stories of conquest across 100 worlds. He looked at the approaching human fleet and felt something close to amusement. Humans, he said to his officers. They bring 5,000 ships to fight 12,000. They bring hope to a battle that has no hope. Fascinating creatures. He opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet. His voice was deep and carried the weight of absolute confidence. Human Admiral, I am Warlord of the Empire. You have traveled far to die. I offer you one chance. Leave now and I will grant you safe passage. This is not your war. They cannot pay you. They cannot help you. There is nothing to gain here except death. Jake stood on the bridge of the Endurance. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. Danny Cole stood at his side. Sophie Lane watched from the science station, monitored the shield system she had helped create. Jake looked at the enemy fleet on the display. He thought about the numbers. 5,000 against 12,000. They were right. The odds said humanity should lose. The odds said this mission was foolish. But Jake had not come this far to turn back. He activated his own communication channel. His voice went out to both fleets and to the listening universe beyond. Warlord, 300 years ago they saved our world. They asked for nothing. They expected nothing. They simply saw a planet in danger and chose to help. Today we return that kindness. We did not come here to calculate odds. We did not come here for payment. We came here because they helped us when we had nothing to offer. And that is the truth about humans, Warlord. We remember. We always remember. And we pay our debts. The channel fell silent. For a long moment nothing happened. Then Warlord spoke again. So be it, fleet, destroy them all. 12,000 ships opened fire. The battle began with a wave of plasma that could have melted continents. Thousands of beams and missiles streaked across the void, aimed at the human formation. They expected the enemy to scatter. They expected panic and chaos. Instead, the human ships held their ground. Sophie's dimensional shields activated across the fleet. Ships flickered and phased, becoming ghosts for precious seconds. Plasma fire passed through empty space where solid metal had been moments before. They fired again and again. Each volley powered the human shields even more. The more they shot, the harder it became to hit anything. What is happening? Demanded. Why are our weapons not connecting? His tactical officer had no answer. The humans were doing something impossible. Admiral watched the battle from his command chair. The shields were working better than anyone had hoped, but they could not last forever. Ships that took damage could not phase as effectively. Smaller vessels did not have enough power capacity. Already, some human ships were dying. All squadrons advance, push into their formation, make them fear every direction. Human ships surged forward. They did not fight in neat lines like they expected. They fought in swirling patterns, unpredictable and aggressive. Pilots flew their craft with reckless courage, threading through enemy formations and striking at weak points. Commander Lily Santos led a squadron of 80 fighters. She was 41 years old, with black hair cut short and a reputation for doing the impossible. Her was Phoenix, because she had survived situations that should have killed her 3 times over. Phoenix Squadron, follow me. We are going straight for their flagship. Her fighters dove into the heart of the fleet. Enemy ships fired from all directions. Lily twisted and rolled, dodging plasma blasts by meters. Her squadron followed, losing ships with every passing minute. But they kept flying. The Iron Dominion grew larger in her. It was enormous, a floating fortress surrounded by defensive batteries and escort vessels. All fighters target the main reactor exhaust ports. One good hit could cripple their power systems. Phoenix Squadron made their attack run. 30 fighters remained from the original 80. They fired everything they had at the flagship's vulnerable points. Explosions ripped across the Iron Dominion's hull. Fire spread through its lower decks. But the cost was terrible. Enemy fire cut through the squadron. One by one, Lily's pilots died around her. Her own ship took a direct hit. Alarms screamed. Smoke filled her cockpit. "Phoenix leader is hit," she reported. Her voice was calm. "Engines failing, shields down, but I can still reach the reactor." Danny Cole heard her on the command frequency. "Lily, pull back. You do not have to do this." "Yes, I do." Lily looked at her controls. The Iron Dominion was right in front of her. One final push. "Tell my daughter I love her. Tell her I did this for her, for everyone." She ejected her surviving crew in escape pods. Then she pointed her burning ship at the flagship's reactor core and fired her remaining thrusters. "For Earth," she said. For every world that ever needed help and got it." Her ship struck the Iron Dominion's reactor. The explosion tore through the massive vessel like fire through paper. The flagship broke apart in a bloom of light and debris. Warlord and his command staff died in an instant. Across the battlefield, the fleet faltered. Their flagship was gone. Their warlord was dead. Confusion spread through their ranks. Jake saw the opportunity and seized it. All ships press the attack, break their formation apart. Human and allied vessels surged forward with renewed fury. The cruisers led the charge, their crews howling ancient war cries as they smashed into enemy lines. Ships provided support, their cargo bays now launching medical shuttles to rescue survivors from damaged vessels. The battle raged for 11 hours. Both sides lost hundreds of ships. Wreckage filled the space around Prime like a field of broken metal and shattered dreams. But slowly, steadily, they began to fall back. A new commander took control of the remaining fleet. He was younger than and less committed to dying for a failed conquest. He looked at the losses, calculated the odds, and made a decision. "All vessels retreat, fall back to the rally point." The enemy fleet turned and ran. Ships that had come to conquer instead fled for their lives. They left behind thousands of destroyed vessels and an invasion that had become a catastrophe. On the bridge of the Endurance, Jake watched them disappear into the distance. He felt no joy. Too many good people had died for joy. But he felt something else, something like peace. "It is over," Danny said quietly. "We actually won." Jake shook his head. "We survived. That is not the same as winning. We lost over 1,000 ships, hundreds of thousands of people." He thought about Lily Santos and all the others who would never go home. They gave everything. Stood at her station with tears streaming down her face. She had worked so hard on those shields. She had believed they could save everyone, but they could not save everyone. Nobody could. Sophie Lane put a hand on her shoulder. "You did more than anyone could have asked. Those shields saved millions of lives today. Hold on to that." Below them, Prime turned slowly in the sunlight. Its crystal spires still stood. Its cities still floated in the sky. The world had been saved. But at a cost that no one would ever forget. Admiral opened a channel to the entire fleet. His voice was tired but steady. "To everyone who fought today, to everyone who sacrificed, they are safe. The enemy has fled. We have done what we came to do." He paused. "But we have also lost brothers and sisters, friends and family. Their names will be remembered. Their courage will be honored. And their sacrifice will never be forgotten. Today, humanity paid its debt, and we paid it with the best of ourselves." Across the battered fleet, men and women bowed their heads. Some wept. Some prayed. All of them understood that they had been part of something that would echo through history. The battle was over. The debt was paid. and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. Part 5. The Impossible Victory. The days after the battle were filled with grief and gratitude in equal measure. Medical ships traveled between damaged vessels, rescuing survivors and treating the wounded. Engineers worked to repair ships that could be saved. Bodies were recovered from the wreckage and prepared for the long journey home. Admiral Jake walked through the corridors of the Endurance like a man carrying a weight too heavy to measure. He visited the wounded in the medical bay. He read the names of the dead. He wrote letters to families who would never see their loved ones again. 1,137 ships had been destroyed. 423,000 people had died. Each number was a universe of loss. Each name was a story that had ended too soon. On the third day after the battle came to find him. Jake stood in a damaged observation deck. The window was cracked but still held. Through the fractured glass, he could see the debris field where so many ships had died. Small lights moved among the wreckage. Recovery teams still searching for survivors. Admiral said, his voice was soft like wind through gentle chimes. "May I speak with you?" Jake did not turn around. "Of course." Moved to stand beside him. His crystalline form caught the light from distant stars and scattered it in patterns of color. "I have lived for over 4,000 of your years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species discover fire and then burn themselves to extinction with it. I thought I understood the patterns of the universe. I thought I knew what beings were capable of." Jake remained silent. "I was wrong." Light flickered with emotion. "What your people did here defies everything I believed. You came to die for us. Not for profit, not for power, not even for glory. You came because 300 years ago, my ancestors helped your ancestors without asking for anything in return." "That is what happened," Jake said quietly. "But why?" asked. "We gave you nothing. We expected nothing. We did not even stay to see what kind of people you would become. Why would you sacrifice so much for a kindness that cost us so little?" Jake finally turned to face him. There were tears on his cheeks. He did not wipe them away. "Because that kindness meant everything to us. Your ancestors did not stay to see what we would become, but we became people who remember. We became people who believe that what you give freely matters more than what you give for payment. We became people who think that a debt of honor is worth more than any debt of gold." He paused. 400,000 of my people died here. I feel every one of those deaths like a wound in my heart, but I also know that they died for something true. They died because humanity chose to be worthy of the gift we were given. Was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice trembled with feeling. "My people do not have words for what you have done. In all our language, in all our history, there is no concept for this level of sacrifice from strangers. We will have to create new words. We will have to build new ideas. Your actions have changed us, Admiral, changed us forever." Jake managed a small, sad smile. "Then perhaps that is what we were meant to do, not just save your world, but remind the galaxy what is possible when beings choose to care for each other." The government invited the entire fleet to land on their world. Ships that could still fly descended through the crystal atmosphere and set down on platforms of living light. Soldiers who had expected to die walked out onto a world more beautiful than anything they had imagined. Brooke stood on a balcony overlooking one of the floating cities. The buildings were made of crystal that sang when the wind passed through them. The air smelled like flowers she had no names for. Everywhere she looked, gathered to watch the humans who had saved them. "It is beautiful," she said to no one in particular. A young approached her. She was small compared to the adults, her crystal form still growing and changing. "You are human?" the young one asked. "Yes. My teachers told me about your people. They said you came from very far away to help us. They said you lost many friends to keep us safe." Knelt down to be closer to the child's level. "That is true." "Why did you do it? We cannot give you anything." thought about how to answer. She thought about all the complicated reasons, the philosophy and the politics and the history. Then she decided to keep it simple. Because a long time ago your people helped my people when we had nothing to give. You did not ask for payment then. We do not ask for payment now. That is how kindness works. You pass it forward. You give it to others and they give it to others, and eventually the whole universe becomes a little bit brighter. The young's form glowed with soft light. I think I understand. I will remember this. I will tell my children and they will tell their children. That is all we could ask for. 6 months later, a memorial was built on Prime. It stood in the capital city, a tower of black stone that rose toward the sky. On its surface, carved in letters of crystal, were the names of every human and allied soldier who died in the battle. 423,000 names, each one a testament to sacrifice. At the base of the memorial, an inscription read in human language, "They remembered, they came, they gave everything." They added their own words beneath it, written in their ancient script. Translated into human speech, it said, "When humanity owes you a favor, prepare for the impossible. They do not know how to do anything else." The unveiling ceremony brought together beings from across the galaxy. Humans stood beside, warriors stood beside traders. Species that had never spoken to each other before shared stories and raised glasses to the fallen. Admiral Jake gave the final speech. He stood before the crowd, an old man who looked even older than his years. "We came here because we believe that debts of honor matter. We came here because we believe that kindness given freely should be repaid with kindness given freely. We lost so many good people, so many brave souls who will never go home." His voice cracked, but he continued. "But we also gained something. We gained the knowledge that when the moment came, humanity rose to meet it. We gained the proof that our species can be worthy of the gifts we are given." He looked at the memorial, at the names of the dead, at the impossible monument to impossible sacrifice. The people whose names are carved here did not die for nothing. They died for everything. For the idea that strangers can become friends, for the belief that what we do for others matters more than what we do for ourselves, for the hope that kindness can echo across 300 years and still mean something. He paused, tears flowed freely down his face now. I hope they knew, in those final moments, that we are proud of them. I hope they knew that we will carry their memory forward for 300 more years and beyond. I hope they knew that they changed the universe. The crowd was silent. Then slowly they began to glow. Their crystal forms brightened until the entire city was filled with light. It was their way of honoring the dead, their way of saying thank you. Across the galaxy, news of the memorial spread. Species who had never thought much about humanity began to pay attention. They told stories about the strange beings who traveled across the stars to pay a debt 3 centuries old. They whispered about what it might mean to earn such loyalty. Some species were moved by the stories. They began to look at their own histories, their own debts, their own chances to do something good for no reason except that it was right. Others were frightened. They looked at humanity and saw a species that would cross the galaxy, face impossible odds, and sacrifice everything for a debt they had no obligation to pay. If humans would do that for gratitude, what would they do for revenge? What would they do for love? The empire from its remaining conflicts. Warlord was dead, and his successors had learned a lesson they would never forget. Some fights were not worth starting. Some species were not worth provoking. The galaxy changed, not all at once and not completely, but something had shifted, something had been proven. Humanity had shown that even in a universe of cold stars and empty space, warmth could survive, kindness could echo, debts could be paid. Jake returned to Earth. He retired from the fleet and spent his remaining years teaching at the academy. He told his students about the Battle of Crystal Haven. He told them about Lily Santos and all the others who gave their lives. He told them that true strength was not about winning fights, but about knowing which fights were worth losing everything for. He died at the age of 89, surrounded by family and friends. His last words were simple: "Tell that we said hello." On Prime, his name was added to the memorial, not among the dead, but in a new section created for heroes who lived long enough to see what they had built. The inscription beside his name read, "He taught us that debts of honor have no expiration date." And far across the galaxy, in places humans had never been and might never go, species told stories about Earth, about the blue world that was saved by crystal ships 300 years ago, about the strange beings who remembered that kindness forever. They said that if you ever help humanity, they will move stars to help you back. Some called it foolish. Some called it beautiful. Humans simply called it right. And that made all the difference.